Welcome to our Ask the Expert video series. I'm Colleen Miller. I'm the director of the Disability Law Center of Virginia. The Disability Law Center of Virginia is the Commonwealth's designated protection and advocacy system. We're here to promote and protect the rights of people with disabilities throughout the Commonwealth. One of the ways that we do that is through education and outreach about disability rights issues. So this is your chance to ask the expert. Let's ask the expert about vocational rehabilitation rights and services.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining me to discuss vocational rehabilitation rights and services. Just to let you know, from here on out, I'll probably refer to it as simply VR services and rights. So hopefully you all came here to explore this topic together and get your questions answered. Let's start at the very beginning. What are VR services? VR services are simply services for individuals with disabilities to help them to get or keep a job. For example, perhaps you have an obstacle or barrier, such as blindness, that makes it a little more difficult for you to get or keep a job. There are agencies here in Virginia that specialize in working with individuals with disabilities to help them to reach their employment goal.
Could you tell me who those agencies are?
Sure. The largest agency and most common way individuals with disabilities in Virginia can get assistance is through a local office of the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services, DARS. To find the DARS office that serves your area, go to dars.virginia.gov or call 800-552-5019. If you're an individual with a visual impairment, you will want to contact the Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired, DBVI. To find the DBVI office that serves your area, go to vdbvi.org or call 800-622-2155.
Okay, so I give them a call. What happens next?
A VR counselor will meet with you and gather basic information and discuss your eligibility for VR services.
And what is a VR counselor exactly?
A VR counselor is a certified, experienced professional within the VR agency who will work with you to explore your employment potential.
What does that person do?
A VR counselor will meet with you to discuss your strengths, weaknesses, interests, skills, and capabilities. They will also gather medical documentation of your disability. You may even be assigned some trial work experiences to assess your readiness for work and give you some on-the-job training. Another possibility is that they will assign a job coach to you to do real-life vocational assessments in community employment settings. Now, let's get started talking about working with your counselor. First, your counselor will meet with you to determine your eligibility for VR services.
What do you mean by eligibility? Does that mean I have to take some type of test?
No, not necessarily a test. Using the medical documentation already submitted, as well as information gathered from the trial work experiences, your counselor will be able to determine your eligibility for VR services.
How long does that take? Sounds like a long time.
It should only take up to 60 calendar days to determine eligibility. However, if additional medical documentation is needed or further trial work experiences are needed, it might take a little longer.
Excuse me, but who pays for all this?
Evaluations and assessments used to determine eligibility for VR services are paid for by the VR agency, not you.
Okay. I have a daughter in high school with an IEP. Can she receive VR services?
That's a really great question, sir. Students in school with disabilities who have an individualized education program, an IEP, the IEP should start focusing on preparing for their future as early as age 14. An adequate transition plan should be in the IEP by the time the student is age 16. Coordination with the appropriate VR agency is essential to developing an adequate transition plan. As a matter of fact, you should really have that initial meeting with the VR counselor prior to your student leaving high school. Are there any other questions?
Yes. What if I need special equipment to be successful on my job?
Your VR counselor may want to do what is called an assistive technology evaluation to determine if there are devices that may help you to be successful in your employment. Once all the assessments and evaluations are done, your VR counselor will meet with you to develop your individualized plan for employment, your IPE.
IEP, IPE, III. What's the difference?
An IEP is a plan for a student's success in school. An IPE is a contract between you and the VR agency that outlines the services the VR agency will provide to you, as well as your responsibilities in working with the VR agency. For example, a service on your IPE might be that the VR agency would provide you with job coaching services, someone to assist you to look for a job and help you with your interviewing skills. A responsibility of yours on the IPE might be that you would attend all meetings with your VR counselor, as well as keep them informed of how your job search is going.
Once I get a job, the VR counselor stays with me, right?
The VR counselor will stay with you for up to 90 days of successful employment. Once you have reached that 90 days of successful employment, the VR counselor will typically close your VR case. Now, when the VR agency closes your case, they must notify you of case closure in writing.
But what if the job's not right for me?
If the job's not right for you, then continue to work with your VR counselor. If you realize after case closure that the job was not right for you, then simply contact your VR agency again and request new services. If you're still having problems with your VR agency, this may be a good time to contact the Disability Law Center of Virginia, as we help with VR and other disability advocacy issues.
Yeah, but listen, this doesn't always work. They assigned me a VR counselor to help me out, and they didn't help. I don't have a job and I need someone to help. This VR counselor you're talking about, they didn't even call me back.
Unfortunately, situations like this do come up. The Client Assistance Program through the Disability Law Center of Virginia is here to assist you to access the services you need from the VR agency. We can also assist you to break down those barriers between you and your counselor. Other issues CAP can assist with are job placement issues, job training, and even case closure.
That's what they did. They closed my case before they even helped me.
If the VR agency closes your case or denies a service or support, you have the right to make an appeal of the service denial or case closure. You can make that appeal by simply contacting your counselor or your counselor supervisor. The Disability Law Center of Virginia may be able to help with such an appeal.
Okay, so I called this counselor supervisor and I didn't get anywhere.
How about let's talk afterwards? Now, it's important for you all to know that if the appeal process doesn't work when you contact the counselor or their supervisor, you can then contact the regional director and request mediation or a fair hearing. Now, mediation is simply a meeting between you, the VR agency, and a neutral third party. A fair hearing is simply that. It's a hearing before an administrative law judge where you and the VR agency both can bring witnesses and present evidence, and the judge makes a written decision. For DARS and DBVI appeals, you also can make a direct complaint to the appropriate VR commissioner. Now, the Disability Law Center of Virginia may be able to assist with any or all of these appeals.
I think it's important that you understand that the system really can work. My son recently transitioned from high school to the community, and I didn't expect to get a lot of support, either from the school or once he got out into the world. What I found after I came to DLCV was they got in touch with the school, they set up a transition plan, and they got him in touch with a really good counselor in the community. In fact, I'm here today to talk to you about VR services for my daughter.
I'm glad we could help your son. Please stay behind and let's talk about your daughter's VR issues. Any final questions? In closing, VR services are critical to the development and successful employment for students and adults with disabilities. Now, please remember to call if you still have questions about VR services or your rights. Now, will the two of you stay behind?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's talk.
If you would like to discuss your disability rights issue, please call the Disability Law Center of Virginia. Our intake hours are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8:30 to 4 p.m. You can call us at 1-800-552-3962, or you can email us at info@dlcv.org. Thanks for watching. This video contains general information for educational purposes. This should not be considered legal advice. It is not a comprehensive statement of the law and may not reflect more recent legal developments. If you have specific questions concerning any matter contained in this video, or if you need legal advice, please consult with an attorney.